Before I show you my anti-tangle catfish rig, let's just inspect for a couple of minutes what everybody else in the catfish world is using. You have main line, which is braid or mono. You have a no-slip sinker. You attach the no-slip sinker to the main line with one of these snaps that everybody sells now that look like this. Notice this is not the actual snap. I'm kind of mocking one here to make a demo, but it allows the lead to travel up and down the line, and at the same time you can remove your leads at the end of the day or add more weight if you choose so. Then you have a glass bead which is supposed to protect the knot. You have usually a very beefy swivel. You have 10 to 12 inches of mono or some other leader, and a circle hook. There are two reasons why this rig is so popular. First, it has been proven to be extremely successful. Virtually all trophy catfish are caught on this rig. I mean, there is nothing else. If you look for catfish rigs, this is pretty much it. The other reason it's so popular, it's because it's so simple to tie. It takes only a couple of minutes to tie the whole thing, and it's pretty cheap. Each of these components are very cheap and easy to find. And the reason that I did some changes to this rig is not to catch more fish, because in all honesty the rig I'm going to show you is not going to catch any more fish than this one, but to kind of make the use of this rig more pleasant, because there is nothing that bothers me as much as, you know, taking the knots out of my rig while I'm on the boat and the fish is biting. Which finally brings me to what we're trying to improve in this rig: the amount of tangles and knots. Now, before you design an anti-tangle rig, you have to correctly identify the source of your tangles. The flat and light piece of shad on the hook is one of the sources of tangle. But there is really nothing we can do about this. This is our bait, so you know, we can put this component away and see what else we can fix. The main line we use for the rig, from anti-tangle perspective, can be very important. I much prefer using braid for catfishing because it's softer and thinner and easier to cast. But the virtue of being soft allows it to kink and tangle very easy. So from that perspective, we can do something about that. The no-roll sinkers. I absolutely hate this. I don't use this unless I absolutely have to. The current has to be super strong, and there's gotta be no other way for me to fish except this. I've only used these a few times in the last few years, to be honest with you. Why do I hate them? Because flat weights don't fly good. It's just a law of physics. They're not aerodynamic. They flop in the air, and then when they land, they make this horrible sound. It's like you threw a bomb or something. I know catfish doesn't care about this, and people don't care about this, but you know, after 20 years of carp fishing, and people teaching me to do as little disturbance to the water as possible, it still bothers me to flop this thing in the air and create this thunder when it lands in the water. For one thing, I think it disturbs, this loud landing disturbs the bait fish, and you know, if you move the bait fish away, the catfish will move away too. So I prefer lead that flies easier through the air and that lands more silently in the water. Then we have this clip that everybody loves and absolutely everybody uses, and they are great for what they are designed to do. They were designed to remove your weights or add more weights and slide it up and down the line, but nobody thought about tangles when they designed these, because look at how small this is. Only like 4 or 5 millimeters. I know I need to cut my nails. Now because of that, if you use braided line in particular, but even with mono, look how easy it is to twist. I mean, I get this on every cast if I use these rigs. So forget about using it as a sliding. It doesn't slide because on every cast it tangles like this. And I know there is not much to do about this, but I don't like this, so I'm trying to fix this in my rig. Now the guys in Tennessee that use 20 and 30 pound mainline, that thing is stiff like wire, and you know, I hate using such stiff mainline, but for one thing it really does help with tangling. And yeah, if you're gonna use these things, you better make sure you don't use this soft braid, or like I said, it's gonna tangle every time. The glass bead is there to protect the knot. Everybody puts the glass bead there, but guys, tell me if I'm out of line here, but I think this glass bead doesn't protect anything ever. First of all, imagine we put an inline lead which kept hitting the knot, okay? Well, it just so happens that, look, I'm gonna leave a scar in the lead with my nail. The lead is much softer than the glass bead. So if I put the lead on top of the glass bead, well, now the glass bead is hitting the knot. So what's the difference? I mean, you might as well hit the knot with the lead. The lead is softer. And if you use this kind of setup, well, what's the difference between the glass bead hitting the knot and this plastic part of the clip hitting the knot? Now, I don't think this knot needs protection, to be honest, because frankly you need to retie these rigs every once in a while anyway, and you know, by the time the knot starts wearing out, you need to retie your rigs for a different reason. But if you want to protect the knot, you either need to use a very soft bead here that actually softens the impact with the knot, or the bead needs to have a very large hole so it can slide on top of the knot, and then the knot is inside the bead and the lead is hitting the bead and never touches the knot. The difficulty with this is most catfish anglers use such thick mainline that the bead cannot slide on top of the knot, and the bead ends up hitting the knot and it doesn't protect nothing. The swivels are actually very important for anti-tangling, especially for catfishing, because, you know, catfish, they spin and spin and spin, and if you don't have a good swivel, it creates so many twists on your line that tangles are just inevitable. And most guys, they use very beefy swivels, so the swivels won't break. But, you know, they kind of spend their money on the size of the swivel instead of the quality of the swivel. This particular swivel I tied on for demo purposes, but I never use, because if you put pressure on the swivel and you try to spin it, it doesn't spin at all. I doubt, if I have a 10-pound catfish here putting some pressure, I doubt that this thing will spin more than a couple of revolutions. So this is not gonna save you. My advice is, when you select your swivels, you don't need that strong a swivel. Instead of buying a oversized cheap swivel like this that is not gonna spin under pressure, buy a smaller ball bearing swivel that spins effortlessly and reduces the twist from your line. And the last note about the classic rig, I know I'm well into the video and you haven't even seen my rig yet, is notice when you tie the knot to the swivel, there is always a kink on your leader line that comes from the fact that you ran the line through the swivel when you were tying the knot. This kink is also a source of tangles that I'm trying to eliminate in my rig. And finally, let's get to my rig. Now remember I told you that I prefer braided line because it's softer and thinner and easier to cast, but I don't like it because it allows the lead to tangle like this. So the first thing I do on my anti-tangle rig is at the end of my braided line I make a knot and I tie some really thick mono line. I'm using 0.6 millimeter cheap Berkeley big game, but you can use anything. It doesn't have to be 0.6. You can go as high as 1 millimeter. And I tie to the end of my braided line about 1 foot piece of really thick mono, just because I can still have a nice and easy casting with the braid and I have the strength of the braid. But now my lead will never tangle with this wire. Just look, guys, look how elastic this thing is. It will never tangle. The next part of my rig is the lead. I always use inline leads. This is inline lead when the line goes through the lead. The reason I use inline leads is to avoid these nightmares with the clips here. Yeah, I can't remove the lead at the end of the day and I can't change it easily, but I compensate for that with proper planning before the fishing trip, and I always select my leads appropriately. And the other thing about my leads is I love using my carp fishing leads. Here is some carp fishing leads. Now notice how all of them have silicone extensions at the end of the lead. Despite the shape and everything else, they always have a silicone extension. But why do you think the Europeans do that? It's not really random. These guys have been fishing for thousands of years before Columbus even stepped here. Well, the reason is if you have this silicone extension, it makes the tangling of the lead with the main line more difficult because the whole piece is now much larger and much more stable. If you add this to the stiff piece of wire that we put here, now it's virtually impossible with this lead and this line to end up with something like this. Okay, that's just never happened since I've used this rig. But if you must use these non-inline leads, and sometimes even I have had to, there are better ways to attach it to the line than these guys. These guys are just tangle machines because this little tube here is so small. They really need to start selling these things with longer tubes. Until then, the carp fishing community already invented these things. Okay, let me put the lead here and show you how it looks. Now if you run the main line through here, you're basically using the same method like before, and you can very easily, take the cap off and remove your lead, or change the lead with different weight or whatever. But now because this silicone piece is more than 1 inch long, it makes those tangles on your main line much harder. And further, if you add on the bottom another piece, now this reduces your chances of tangling quite a lot. And then I have a bead as well. Now my bead is made of very soft silicone, I don't know if you can see, but it's extremely soft. And on top of this, I kind of put it on top of my knot, so it doesn't even move out of here. So the lead never really even touches the knot, but only the bead, and the bead is much softer. This particular one is green color. Usually I use brown and black because I want my rig to be completely invisible on the bottom. But now I'm experimenting with these things, and I had good luck in the last session, so I'm gonna keep this one there for now. Next part of my rig is the swivel. Like I said, I prefer smaller swivels but higher quality. Now compare this swivel to this guy that I just showed you earlier that has almost no spinning if you put pressure on it. This guy, if you put pressure and you try to spin, just look at this. It spins completely frictionless inside because of these ball bearings, okay? So all of this twist that comes up on your main line from the catfish, and sometimes, you know, even a large piece of shad, when you reel it back to the boat, it kind of spirals through the water. And even if you don't catch a fish, you still create so much twist on your main line, and twist and tangles is like peanut butter and jelly. So yeah guys, you don't need such big beefy swivels, but you do need high quality ball bearing swivels, in my opinion. Very important from anti-tangle perspective. And by the way, this swivel may look small, but it's still a 50-pound swivel, much stronger than my 20-pound leader here. So yeah, that about the swivel. And this is the last part of my anti-tangle rig. Remember I told you how on the when you tie the leader, the hook leader to your swivel, usually there is a kink right around here from you tying the knot, and then you have usually this piece here sticking out. This is also a source of tangling because it's already kinked. So for that purpose I use you know, again from carp fishing, they make these, they're called anti-tangle sleeves. They make them in all different lengths, but basically it's nothing but a silicone tube that gets progressively thinner at the end. So all I do is I slide this on top of the knot and on top of this line that is sticking out here, so nothing else can grab it. And because the kink is here and the other piece of the line is here, now this piece here is kind of very stiff and at the same time elastic. It's not completely stiff, but it reduces all, you know, possibility for tangling here. So if you look at my rig right around the swivel, I have this 0.6 millimeter very thick mono. I have the lead with the silicone extension. I have a very fast spinning swivel, and I have this thing here to get rid of the kink and the extension. So this makes for one very stiff presentation here. Oh, one last thing. The hook leader itself should be shorter than your 0.6 leader. So you can see here, mine is the 0.6 is about a foot long, but the hook leader is shorter than a foot. So even if it flies back and grabs the main line, it will grab this thick wire here and it's not gonna tangle. If this leader is longer than the thick leader, it will grab the braid and it will tangle up like this by the time you take it out. So make sure the hook leader is shorter than this leader here. So that's pretty much my anti-tangle rig, guys. Like I said, it's not really gonna catch more fish than the classic rig, but in my experience it does reduce tangling quite a lot. Now I know these components are not readily available, but I will put a link in the description to most of them, mainly on eBay. I don't make any money from them, but for those of you who made it to the end of the video, I actually have a small giveaway, and I didn't put this in the title because I want only the people who saw the whole video to see this. So basically you're gonna get everything you see on the screen. I put some of my carp fishing fox leads. Some of them are already attached to these anti-tangle clips. I put some anti-tangle clips here. I put some anti-tangle sleeves. I put my favorite soft beads. And all you have to do is leave a comment with the string that you see in the comment right now. And don't write in your comment that this is a giveaway, because I don't want everybody to find out that there is a giveaway. And it's Saturday now. Next weekend I will have another video, and somewhere in the video I'm just gonna say who the winner is. I'm not gonna make a separate video for the winner. If the winner doesn't contact me, there will be no second draw, none of that. It's just a small giveaway only for those who watch my videos to the end.